Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Day in Film MiniCast, and today I have a rare, but I hope appreciated, double feature. I hope you all stick around for my totally in-depth and detailed discussion on both of the Paddington movies, as I'm sure you've seen in the thumbnail and the title by now. But before we jump in, I just have to ask that you not only continue to watch the video, but that you subscribe and like as well, and leave a comment. I really do love reading your comments, and each little interaction with the video means more than you could ever imagine to me. So whether it's criticism, or it's a compliment, or just something you liked about Paddington, it really would mean the world if you left it in the comments below. But anyway, let's jump right into this dual cast. So Paddington and Paddington 2, both directed by Paul King and based off of a British novel, I want to say. These movies have been in my sight for a very long time now. People, at least online, constantly talk about the Paddington movies with such revere and such respect that I was kind of just shocked. You know, for the longest time, I remember when Paddington was coming out, I thought it was kind of like a stupid baby movie, and that it wasn't anything past a cute CG bear. And I was completely wrong about that. So to start, we'll go over the plot of both Paddington 1 and 2. So Paddington 1 follows a young bear, who is eventually named Paddington, making his way to London and trying to fit in there while trying to avoid a woman trying to taxidermy him. And Paddington 2 follows Paddington trying to get a gift for his aunt, his great aunt bear mom, basically. And I think maybe it is his mom, actually. Well, Paddington is trying to get a gift for a significantly older female bear figure in his life, and he ends up getting arrested and has to prove his innocence through wacky means. So something I really appreciate about Paddington, both of them, is how much of it feels like such a storybook. You know, it feels so whimsical and so just easy to process, and it feels so lovely. You know, I think one of the best things about both Paddington movies, and a large part of why I watched these Paddington movies, was so that I can watch Paddington 3 Peruvian Adventures, or whatever it's called, whenever it comes out, because I have been wanting to watch that, and I've just generally been wanting to watch Paddington. But I think one of the best things about it is how light the movie is, and the character that is Paddington. He feels like such an empathetic, just sweet, lovable character to watch, who's, you know, there's something so special about, and the CG in both of these movies looks great. Paddington, like the actual character model, looks unbelievably good, and they really do give him a lot of character. Throughout both of the movies, I never really felt like Paddington was a CG creature, you know. It always feels like he's really there, and he's really interacting with these actual actors, and you know, the voice actor for Paddington, Ben Whishaw, I think is how you say his name, is totally great. He has this really sweet, kind of soft voice that I really appreciate. And one thing I didn't know until I looked at the director's filmography is that Paul King also directed Wonka, and it makes total sense. Wonka in a lot of ways is very similar, very easygoing, very like just a lovely watch, which I really, really do love. You know, as much as I love those gritty, you know, as much as I love Gone Girl, I equally love movies like this, like Paddington, like Wonka, like The Cat Returns, you know, anything animated, anything CG, just anything light. It feels so like a weight off my shoulders when I'm watching them, you know. It's almost the same thing I felt with Liar Liar. It's just such a lovely feeling. Now, in saying all of this, I don't think Paddington, at least the first one, is a flawless movie. There are definitely some problems with it. For one, I think the antagonist just doesn't really do enough to feel justified. It does add a sense of urgency to the film, I guess, but I think having Paddington just trying to settle into London from a wild jungle in Peru would have been more than enough to get Paddington's bearings. And I do like that in the second movie, in Paddington 2, he feels a lot more ingrained in the city, and he knows all these people. He's a generally well-liked guy, which is really nice. And having Hugh Grant, at least in the second one, play the villain also just brings in another layer of just loveliness because, as I said in my Heretic review, Hugh Grant is an excellent actor, and every time you get to watch him, it is a true blessing on screen, and he's equally as zany and weird and even sort of off-putting as I've come to expect from his roles. Paddington 2 was definitely my favorite of the two movies. It definitely feels a lot more fantastical and a lot more emotional. This one focuses a lot on his relationship with his family, which I really like, whereas Paddington was the original, or the first one, was just trying to, kind of get its bearings and set up everything and the Browns and all these random characters. I do think that Paddington 2 it kind of underutilizes its prisoners mainly. I think the prisoners do feel a little weak. They don't do enough, but I mean, still, the movie does have a strong enough emotional core to almost get me to cry. I'm not afraid to admit that the end of Paddington 2 almost made me shed a tear because I was so just touched by that relationship. It really is sweet, and I love the generally heightened amount of hijinks in Paddington 2, and also the visuals. I hate to draw the comparison because it feels so lazy, but a lot of things in both the original and the second one, or I should say the first one and the second one, is the Wes Anderson-esque shots. There are a lot of they do this a couple times throughout, where they get little models and they transition from the models to the real buildings, and it feels really unique, and it really flows well with the story. And another thing that I love about Paddington that kind of has to do with that is the setting of London. Again, being an American, I don't know anything about London, but just seeing the way Paddington interacts with this weird version of, I guess the original version of American culture, is just kind of funny seeing him, take off his hat and tip it to people, all that silly British language, like, "Blumio, chep," silly little things like that. I have a smile on my face every time Paddington says a random piece of British slang or just terminology. There are a lot of really good gags in both movies as well. The continuity of the marmalade sandwich and the hat is used pretty well, I want to say. It's used very well in both movies, and appropriately too. I really do love that one specific scene in Paddington 1 where he is sitting in the booth in front of whatever building that was, and he goes to one of the royal guards and he takes off his hat and he has a bunch of sandwiches just like him. I thought it was really cute and a really nifty touch. And even though I think Paddington, or at least the first Paddington, is not nearly as strong as the second, that one's emotional core is just not as strong, but it's still pretty strong. Seeing the way the family finally warms up to him and unites to save him, especially the dad, whose name I'm forgetting right now. He's a very, I'd say he's probably the most detailed character of the family in both movies. He definitely has the most character development throughout the two, and there are some genuinely great scenes in both movies for every family member to shine. At least in Paddington 1 and 2, the father in the first one, where he finally mans up and decides to show everyone who he used to be, and in the second one when he finally throws that fastball, whatever his name was, it's all just really cute. It's all really endearing. And generally, Paddington just feels like a movie you could throw on. It's so inoffensive and so just lovely to watch and so visually pleasing, especially Paddington 2. That movie's saturation and just like color grading, I guess, is just so souped up that it's kind of impossible to ignore how just like bubbly it looks. It looks so just calm and lovely, which is something I really do appreciate in a movie like this, because if it was all just gray and brown, it wouldn't really translate that joyous feeling, and it also wouldn't look like a picture book like I'm pretty sure Paddington is based off of. The music in Paddington is really great too. It all feels very uniquely British, but also oddly Peruvian and very adventurous. This movie is, at its core, an adventure movie, both of them, for Paddington. And seeing that translated into the score and even sort of the cinematography is really appreciated. I will say there are a couple weird shots in both movies where it's top down and you're seeing Paddington's paws and it looks like they're puppets. I don't know if it was, and I'm sure the CG for Paddington and simulating all of his hair and stuff is by no means easy, but I can't help but just kind of notice it and kind of laugh. It's not a bad thing, but I just notice it and laugh. Marmalade, I know it's a weird point to bring up, but Marmalade is a pretty big plot point of both movies, and just there's something about it. I'm gonna be honest, guys, I hadn't heard of Marmalade before Paddington, and seeing it especially in the second one, how they make it in the jail, it makes me want a marmalade sandwich so bad. And that's something else that's so lovely, because they even mention in the movie Paddington finds the best in people, and that's why he makes friends so easily. And in a very weird and silly sounding way, it makes me kind of reevaluate the way I look at life. You know, it feels like Paddington is one of those movies that if watched at the right time could genuinely change your life perspective and just the way you behave in life, which is really nice. You don't really get that very often, even in little silly, I don't want to call it a kids movie, but I mean at its core it is a kids movie. It's really nice to have such a strong moral backbone to a movie, even when it's about a CG bear trying to get a picture book for his mom. You know, it's really sweet, and I love it. I don't know if I have much more to say. Both movies are very good. At least I gave the first Paddington a 7 out of 10, and I think I'm leaning to a 9 out of 10 on Paddington 2. A huge step up in quality. It just does a lot more, and you know, the antagonist fits better in the movie, and he does a lot more. The family feels like they do a lot more, have a lot more character development. Both movies are a good time, and I think it's good to watch them as almost as a not a. And I think it's important to watch both movies separately. If I could, I would have taken a day break, because these do take place over quite the span of time, and it's nice to almost feel how these characters develop and see even certain returning characters and how they've changed. It's just very nice. But yeah, I don't have much more to say. I definitely recommend you watch both Paddingtons, but if you have to choose one, watch the second one, because that's definitely the better of the two. My only complaint is give me more Banshees of Inisherin, guy. But that's all I have to say. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy the video. And I will see you in the theaters.